Dooku was the renowned leader of the Separatist movement and hero of the Confederacy. He served as a noble general and fierce combatant throughout the course of the entirety of the Clone Wars. At his disposal, he commanded an entire armada of droid soldiers, as well as controlled countless systems from which he could mine resources, manpower, and any other armament that could further the Separatist cause. Perhaps his greatest asset was that of General Grievous, notorious warlord turned cybernetic Jedi butcher, and one of the most dangerous Separatist weapons that the Sith had to wield during the Clone Wars conflict. Despite his admirable affinity for killing Jedi, and besting even the most well-trained combatants in single duels, what did Dooku actually think of General Grievous on a personal level? Why did he have such a disdain for perhaps the Separatist's greatest asset? And why was Grievous looked down upon so much by Dooku? As well as specifically, what did Dooku think of Grievous's practice of collecting dead Jedi lightsabers? Well, stick with us today, students of the Force, and let's dive into Dooku's accounts and true thoughts as they pertain to General Grievous. Grievous's methods, practices, and traditions that Dooku saw as irksome at best and downright disrespectful or heinous at the worst. One of Count Dooku's proudest achievements and his crown jewel was his utter mastery of the lightsaber, becoming debatably the greatest duelist that his generation of Jedi had ever seen, as he sported with him an illustrious and accomplished career. Dooku was able to contend with Grandmaster Yoda for a short period of time, dueling him to a standstill at an astonishing 80 years of age, and was said to only be surpassed by Mace Windu, although this was debatable and has a lot of ambiguity surrounding who was truly the better duelist. There is no doubt that Dooku in his prime was one of the most formidable single duelists that the Jedi Order had ever produced, and his affinity for saber combat was second to none at the height of his power and physical capabilities. This mastery took decades of intense training and discipline, not to mention the countless adventures he had both to undertake as a Jedi Master, as well as during his time as a Sith Lord. Seeing the Jedi of the modern Clone Wars era swing their lightsabers like blunt instruments and relying on brutality over grace and dexterity annoyed Dooku to no end, as he believed newer Jedi lacked the precision and grace of old lightsaber combat, seeing it as a means to an end rather than an art form to be practiced, mastered, and respected. He had a particular disdain for the practice of wielding multiple lightsabers, and often critiqued Jedi who used two or more lightsabers, such as we see with General Grievous. Grievous, who was a non-force sensitive, untrained brute force warlord wielding 4 lightsabers at once, caused Dooku to feel immense disdain and disrespect for his subordinate. No matter how effective these barbaric tactics may have been against Jedi, Count Dooku abandoned the ways of the Jedi due to their dogma and political stance within the galaxy, not due to his disagreement with the Jedi ways on a philosophical and moral level. He still had an immeasurable respect for the sacred bond between the Jedi and their lightsaber, as well as the nature of the Force and its position as an unbiased entity who served only to obtain balance. This meant that Grievous's affinity for collecting lightsabers was one of the most egregious disservices to the Jedi arts that Dooku had ever seen, and the individual to disrespect Dooku so vehemently was not only his own subordinate, but did not possess any gifts of the Force. If Dooku had still served the Order of the Light and learned of Grievous, he would most likely want to destroy the general himself to make right the desecration of his sacred ways. As a Sith Lord though, Dooku not only had to live with the existence of such a creature, but had to actively command Grievous across the battlefield against his former Jedi friends and colleagues who he still cared for on some distant level. To put things quite plainly, Dooku was absolutely disgusted with General Grievous's practice of collecting dead Jedi's lightsabers. But on top of this, Dooku also had an avid disdain for cybernetic enhancements as a fundamental principle, regardless of who practiced with one. Dooku was on record as believing that even Anakin's robotic hand was a disgrace to the Jedi ways, and he believed that a true gentleman and honorable warrior would learn to duel with a single hand. In Dooku's eyes, the Jedi ways were still sacred for numerous reasons, and he wanted nothing more than to respect what the Jedi had once been. Even if the current era must crumble, he only wanted to dismantle the current organization so that he could rebuild it back to its former glory, only now aligned with the Sith, getting rid of the political biases and governmental involvement that had long since corrupted what had been a sacred order of unbiased, noble peacekeepers. Dooku now believed, though, in peace through domination. Grievous, however, was an absolute abomination in every way conceivable. and Dooku resented the fact that he had to work with such a disgrace to the beliefs that he had held so dear. Not only did he annihilate the relationship and sacred bond that each Jedi had with their weapon, but he was an ill-trained barbarian who had no concept of how to use the weapons in the first place. Grievous's style was to overwhelm an opponent with a barrage of brutal strikes, breaking down a Jedi's defenses with violence and aggression, which required no skill nor finesse. Instead, it just took immense strength and speed, which Grievous himself did not inherently possess either. Grievous's strength and speed could be directly attributed to his cybernetic enhancements, which were the only reason he could keep up with a Jedi in the first place. He was not force sensitive, he was not naturally as fast as a Jedi, nor was he naturally as strong as the gifts of the Force. He had no concept on how to properly wield the lightsaber, nor did he have any respect for the blade itself, and his inclusion into the Separatist movement was strictly due to Dooku's lack of resources. In essence, Dooku turned to Grievous out of sheer necessity, not because he had any respect for the monster, nor did he have any desire to work with Grievous for any other reason than to attain victory. But this is what he had at his disposal. At first, Dooku attempted to teach Grievous the intricacies of lightsaber combat, showing him proper form and footwork to a degree that was largely successful in fact. This allowed Grievous to grasp a fundamental understanding of proper lightsaber forms, and he used this to enhance his style. But graduating to a degree wherein Grievous could take on multiple trained knights at once should have taken decades of intense training and practice, not just a few short months. Dooku had to watch Grievous build more skill and notoriety in just 3 years than Dooku had obtained over a lifetime of training. And while Dooku could fight off multiple Jedi Knights at once, he was still nowhere near obtaining the same level of bloodshed and veracity that Grievous had become known for. This is of course not to say that Grievous is necessarily more skilled in lightsaber combat than Dooku, as Dooku was still a superior duelist in just about every single way. But the idea that Grievous could become this skilled in such a short amount of time felt like cheating to the Count. This is especially prevalent because Dooku rarely ever engaged in lightsaber combat during the Clone Wars, which is the primary reason why he didn't slaughter nearly as many Jedi as Grievous, as Dooku took on a more political leadership role and only resorted to combat when absolutely necessary. Grievous, however, was consistently on the front lines with his sole purpose being combat and the decimation of Jedi, and this helped to augment a reputation that Dooku felt he did not formally earn. But anyway, my friends, what did you think of this inner look at Dooku's true thoughts on the droid general? Do you think that General Grievous was a disrespect to the Jedi ways? And in what other ways did he desecrate Jedi traditions and practices? As always, my friends, thank you so much for watching and continuing to support the channel. May the Force be with you, and have a great day.